The moment Mark floated the idea of an open marriage over our homemade spaghetti dinner, my fork nearly dropped. It could be good for us. Rejuvenate our love, he said, eyes avoiding mine. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But it wasn't. My heart sank as I muttered a reluctant, okay, hoping deep down this was just a weird phase. The next day, curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself scrolling through a dating app, only to stumble upon Mark's profile. It was like a slap in the face, his smiling photo staring back at me, his bio screaming for adventure with anyone but me. Betrayed, yet silent. I plotted my next move in the solitude of our bedroom. A week of silent treatments and awkward mornings later, my phone buzzed with a message from Ethan, a guy the first matched with on the app out of a mix of spite and curiosity. Coffee tomorrow? It read. Why not, I thought. Might as well dive headfirst into this open thing. Ethan and I met at a cozy cafe downtown, and it turned out he was in the same boat. Open marriage, feeling neglected, looking for something more. We clicked instantly, and before I knew it, we were back at his place, entangled in sheets, embracing this new reality we'd found ourselves in. Returning home the next morning, I was met with an eerie silence. Mark's stuff? Gone. A note on the counter casually mentioned he'd be away, exploring, for a while. No return date, no contact info. Just like that, as if our life together was nothing but a brief stopover. I tried calling, messaging, reaching out to friends, but it was as if Mark had vanished into thin air. Haven't heard from him, they'd say, their voices a mix of concern and confusion. Abandoned and angry, I found solace in Ethan's company, our shared sense of desertion drawing us closer. 2 weeks turned into a month, and not a word from Mark. Ethan and I, finding comfort in each other's company, gradually built a connection that seemed to fill the void left by our absent spouses. Yet, beneath it all, the questions remained. Where had Mark gone? And why had he left without a trace? In a desperate bid for clarity and closure, I found myself dialing the number of a private investigator. I need to know where he is, I confessed, the words tasting like defeat. Handing over a photo of Mark, I couldn't shake the fear of what I might uncover. It felt like stepping off a cliff, not knowing where the bottom was. The investigator's call came 2 days later, a bombshell that shattered any remnants of hope I had clung to. He's cleaned out your joint account, the voice on the line informed me, the words cold and clinical. Betrayal seeped into my bones, leaving me financially crippled and emotionally wrecked. How could the man I married, the man I trusted, do this to me? Ethan, sensing my despair, suggested a plan that felt like grasping at straws in a whirlwind of chaos. Let's expose him, he said, his voice a mix of anger and determination. Show his family, his friends, what he's really like. There was a dark allure to the idea, a chance to strike back, to make Mark feel a fraction of the pain he'd inflicted on me. Armed with passwords remembered from over-the-shoulder glances and guesswork, I breached Mark's digital world. The evidence was damning. Messages, photos, arrangements with women whose names twisted my gut with jealousy. With each discovery, my resolve hardened. Mark had turned our life into a lie, and it was time the truth came out. Ethan stood by me as we compiled the evidence, crafting emails that felt like grenades waiting to be thrown. Hitting send unleashed a storm I barely understood, a whirlwind of emotions, but among them, a fleeting sense of vindication. I imagined Mark's shock, his world upended as mine had been, and for a moment, I savored the thought. The retaliation was swift and sharp, a cease and desist letter arriving with the morning mail. You're harassing Mark, the lawyer's letter accused, the words black and foreboding on white paper. Harassing him? The irony was a bitter pill, a mockery of the pain and havoc he'd wrought in my life. But as I poured my energy into this vendetta against Mark, cracks began to show in my world. Friends, once sympathetic, now eyed me with wariness and disappointment. You're going too far, they cautioned, their words heavy with unspoken judgments. It was isolating, realizing that my quest for justice was painting me as the villain in the eyes of those I cared about. Undeterred by the legal threats, I pressed on, fueled by a mix of rage and desperation. Yet, in my quieter moments, I wondered if this path of revenge was leading me further away from the healing I so desperately sought. With each action against Mark, the distance between my old self and who I'd become grew wider, a chasm filled with anger and sorrow. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more twisted, Ethan began pulling away, his discomfort with my vendetta against Mark becoming a chasm between us. "This isn't what I signed up for," he admitted one evening, his words slicing through the air like cold blades. Another betrayal. Another person walking out of my life when I needed them the most. The sting of Ethan's departure was soon overshadowed by news from the private investigator. Mark was living it up in a luxury condo in some fancy part of a city miles away, his life apparently untouched by the chaos he'd left behind. The injustice of it all, the sheer unfairness, lit a fire in me that I couldn't suppress. If he thought he could just start over, leaving me to pick up the pieces, he was sorely mistaken. Fueled by a mix of rage and desperation, I concocted a plan to confront him publicly. There was a conference he was attending, a perfect opportunity to expose him for who he really was. I booked a ticket to the city, my mind racing with what I would say, how I would reveal his true character to everyone. The day of the conference was a blur. My heart pounded as I spotted him, the familiar figure weaving through the crowd, oozing confidence. I approached, my voice louder than I'd intended, accusations flying, but Mark, ever the charmer, remained cool, detached, as if I were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. It wasn't long before security was escorting me out, my efforts to humiliate him only serving to deepen my own disgrace. Not content with simply dismissing me, Mark struck back with a legal blow, a restraining order, alleging that my behavior at the conference was just the tip of the iceberg. The document, with its formal accusations and cold legalese, was a slap in the face, a reminder of how far I'd fallen in my quest for justice. In a fit of impotent rage, I did something stupid. Mark's car, parked so carelessly outside his luxury condo, became the target of my frustration. The security camera footage was indisputable, my actions caught in high definition. Arrested for vandalism, my situation went from bad to worse. The aftermath was a nightmare. My lawyer, working miracles, managed to get the charges reduced to community service, but the damage was done. The arrest, the legal fees, they all but wiped out what little I had left. Financially ruined, emotionally spent. I was a shadow of the woman I once was, my life a testament to the destructive power of revenge. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. Mark's family came knocking, their words like daggers. "You've destroyed everything," they accused, blind to the fact that it was Mark's idea that started this whole mess. Standing in my once shared, now lonely living room, I felt the weight of their blame crushing me, a reminder of how far I'd fallen. Then, the job I clung to as my last piece of normalcy slipped through my fingers. "We can't have this kind of publicity," my boss said, regret in his eyes but firmness in his voice. There I was, career in shambles, reputation tarnished beyond recognition. The spiral seemed endless. Ethan's departure was the final blow. "I need to fix my own life," he said, his words final, leaving no room for argument. It felt like being abandoned all over again. Only this time, I saw it coming and was powerless to stop it. The sting of his betrayal was a bitter pill to swallow, leaving me to question the very foundation of our connection. Social media, once a harmless escape, became a window into a life I was no longer part of. Pictures of Mark, smiling and seemingly at peace with a woman whose face I recognized from those haunting messages, twisted the knife further. He had moved on, while I was stuck in the debris of our collapsed life. Job hunting turned into a nightmare. Each interview felt like walking through a minefield, my tarnished reputation a shadow I couldn't shake off. "We'll be in touch," they'd say, but the silence that followed spoke volumes. The city that once felt like a realm of endless possibilities now seemed like a prison. With no job, no support, and no reason to stay, I made the decision to leave. Packing my life into boxes felt like closing chapters of a book I never wanted to read again. Selling what little I had, I prepared for a fresh start, somewhere new, somewhere where my past couldn't reach me. The decision to move wasn't easy, but it was necessary. As I looked around my nearly empty apartment, I realized this was it. The end of my life here, and the start of something new. Maybe somewhere else, I could find a piece of the peace that had eluded me for so long. On the morning I was set to leave everything behind, my phone pinged with a message that made my heart skip. A message for Mark. "I'm sorry for everything," it read. But the words felt empty, void of true remorse. It was too little, too late. His apology didn't bring closure. It only reignited my anger, reminding me of all the reasons I needed to start anew. Determined to turn my pain into something productive, I started a blog for my small, new apartment in a town where no one knew my name. It was my attempt to make sense of the chaos, to warn others about the pitfalls of open marriages and the deceit I'd endured. To my surprise, people began to follow my journey, sharing their own stories of betrayal and heartache. It felt like creating a community out of shared scars. But with visibility came vulnerability. Mark's defenders were quick to find my blog, branding me as bitter and vindictive. The comments were cruel, personal attacks that seemed aimed to break my spirit. It was a stark reminder that even in my new life, the shadow of my old one loomed large. Despite the onslaught of negativity, I pressed on, sharing my story with anyone who would listen. There was a cathartic power in opening up, in possibly helping someone else avoid the same fate. Yet, each post took a toll, leaving me drained and questioning if my quest for healing was just opening old wounds. Then, the legal notice arrived, a cold, formal threat to silence me. Mark was suing for defamation, demanding I take down my blog or face him in court. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mark, who had turned my life upside down, now claiming victimhood. Faced with the prospect of legal battles I couldn't afford, I had no choice but to comply. Taking down each post felt like erasing pieces of my journey, my voice muted by the man who had caused so much pain. It was a bitter pill to swallow, realizing that in trying to reclaim my life, I'd somehow lost even more ground. The day I removed the last blog post, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, the silence echoing the emptiness I felt inside. Mark had managed to take one more thing from me, leaving me to wonder if I'd ever truly be free from the shadow of our shared past. The day I stepped into the small town that was to become my new home, it felt like walking onto a stage without knowing the script. The local diner offered me a job, and I found a modest apartment that was a shadow of my previous life. This was my chance at a fresh start, a place where the echoes of my past couldn't reach me, or so I hoped. Here, I became a shadow of myself, serving coffee and pie with a smile that never quite reached my eyes. I built walls around me, too scared to let anyone in. The fear of being judged, of having to explain the scars that weren't visible, kept me from forming any new connections. It was safer that way, or at least that's what I told myself. Then, one day, a text from a former mutual friend shattered the fragile peace I'd found. "Mark's going to be a dad," it read. Just like that, my past crashed into my present, leaving me gasping for air. The pain of what I'd lost, what Mark had taken from me, felt as fresh as ever. It was a reminder of a life that could have been, now forever out of reach. In the wake of that news, the diner became more than just a job, it was my refuge. I lost myself in the routine, each order a distraction from the turmoil inside. Little by little, I started saving, each penny in the jar by my bed a symbol of hope for something better, a future where the past didn't define me. But the past has a way of catching up. One evening, a customer looked at me a second too long, recognition dawning in his eyes. "Aren't you the woman from?" he began, but I didn't let him finish. My heart sank. The fear of being exposed, of that new beginning slipping through my fingers, was paralyzing. Yet, in that moment of vulnerability, something unexpected happened. The regulars at the diner, the ones I'd served day in and day out, rallied around me. Their kindness, free from judgment or curiosity about my past, offered a glimpse of the community I'd been too afraid to seek out. They showed me that perhaps starting over wasn't as impossible as I'd feared. Then came the letter from Ethan, its arrival unexpected and its contents even more so. "I'm sorry," he wrote, "for everything." His words forced me to confront a tangle of feelings I'd pushed aside: forgiveness, resentment, and the painful acknowledgement of the role his encouragement had played in my downfall. It was a reminder of the complexity of human emotions, of the capacity for growth and change, even in those we might have given up on. In this small town, working at the diner, surrounded by people who knew nothing of my past yet offered unconditional support, I found the strength to face each day. And with Ethan's letter, I began to understand that forgiveness, whether given or received, was a crucial step on the path to healing. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could find peace amidst the ruins of my life. Finding purpose in a world that once seemed void of it, I started volunteering at the local shelter. There, amidst the stories of loss and resilience, I found my own strength, teaching others to rebuild their lives. I discovered a solace I hadn't known I was searching for. It was as if every piece of advice I gave, every shoulder I offered, helped patch the cracks in my own foundation. With a newfound determination, I scrimped and saved, every tip from the diner pushing me closer to a goal that once seemed unattainable. Enrolling in a night class was my leap towards a future I could shape. The thought of starting a new career, of turning the page on a chapter that had been written by someone else's choices, filled me with a cautious optimism. When a local newspaper featured my volunteer work, highlighting the small steps I'd taken towards personal recovery and helping others, the response was overwhelming. Encouragement and praise from the community bolstered my confidence, a stark contrast to the isolation I'd felt for so long. It was a public acknowledgement that I was moving forward, that my past didn't define me. That same resilience and community support led to a job opportunity in a field I'd always been interested in but never had the courage to pursue. As I prepared for this new role, the excitement was tempered with fear. Yet, the possibility of a fresh start, of building a life on my own terms, outweighed the trepidation. The day Mark reached out again, suggesting we meet to talk, felt like a test of my resolve. Staring at his message, I realized I no longer sought his validation or needed closure from him. Deleting it, I chose instead to focus on the path I was carving out for myself. It was a declaration of my independence from the pain and betrayal that had once consumed me. In the stability of my new job and through the fulfillment of my volunteer work, I began to forgive myself. The guilt and shame that had once shackled me to my past started to dissolve, replaced by a sense of peace with the choices I'd made in the wake of Mark's betrayal. A year after my move, I had saved enough to upgrade to a better apartment. It was more than just a change of scenery, it was a testament to my resilience, a sign of progress and independence. The space was mine alone, a sanctuary built from the ground up with my own perseverance and strength. With this new beginning, I launched a blog centered on personal growth and recovery. Avoiding the pitfalls of my past public endeavors, I focused on the lessons learned in the journey ahead. The blog became a platform for connection, for sharing the universal struggles of moving past betrayal and finding strength in vulnerability. The messages of gratitude and shared stories of resilience from my readers underscored the importance of community, of not going through our darkest moments alone. Each comment, each shared experience, reinforced the idea that while our journeys are unique, the emotions that drive us are universally understood. On the anniversary of my move, I took a moment to reflect on the tumultuous path that had led me to where I was. The losses were undeniable, the scars evident, but so too was the strength I garnered from each setback, each challenge. The realization that I might never fully heal from the betrayal was no longer a source of despair, but a badge of my enduring resilience. Cake? No need for it. Go ahead and toss it out. That's what my husband said on my birthday, and had the audacity to go on a trip with his mistress. I had hoped this would be our last chance, but it seems I was mistaken. I really don't think I can continue living with you anymore. Understood. In that case, I'll do as you said. Throw out the cake, and I'll throw out something else that's important to you as well. And then prepare yourself because I'm going to throw out thing that is most unnecessary to me. My name is Sarah. I'm a 28-year-old office worker. My husband Bob also works in an office, although it's a different company. We don't have any children. Bob and I met a year ago. It was at a party held by a senior colleague from work. I'm rather plain, a bit overweight, introverted, and gloomy, and my hobby is reading comic books, an indoor type of person. So I was invited to the party only to make up the numbers. Also, I knew this, so I didn't join the conversation much and was just drinking my beverage at the edge of the table. Still, out of all the participants there, Bob, who was the most handsome, outgoing, and good at conversing, for some reason, actively started talking to me. Bob enjoys traveling and collecting vintage vinyl records, and he told me stories about his travels and old music, which were really interesting. When it was time to go home, he asked for my contact details, and though I was surprised, we exchanged our contact information on Facebook, and the very next day, he messaged me, "I'd like to meet up, just the two of us next time." I was so surprised that at first, I wondered if this was some kind of punishment game, or if he was going to try to sell me something. But I was happy, so I agreed, and we had a meal together on a later date. After that, he frequently asked me out, and after a few dates, he confessed his feelings for me. I had never had a boyfriend in my life before, so I was overjoyed at my first ever confession and accepted it. And then, about 3 months after we started dating, he proposed, and we got married. I thought it was like a dream that someone as ordinary and boring as me could marry such a wonderful person, and I believed that a happy life was about to start. But as soon as we got married, Bob's attitude completely changed. When we were dating, he was very kind. But once we got married, he started pushing all the household chores on me and would just laze around watching TV or listening to records in his room when he got back from work. I don't know if it's because the volume of the records is loud, but when I call out, "Dinner's ready," he doesn't seem to hear me and often doesn't come right away, which irritates me. On his days off, he leaves me alone and goes out to play, saying he has plans with friends or colleagues from work. When I say, "Please help me with the household chores a little," he replies, "I'm working, you know." When I tell him, "I'm working too. I'd appreciate it if you could at least help with the household chores on your days off," he says, "I'm busy even on my days off because I have to hang out with my friends, unlike you, who don't have many friends because you're so gloomy." Ain't that last remark just awful? Sure, I'm not exactly Miss Social Butterfly due to my personality, I get it, but to say such things to my face, that's just plain rude, ain't it? That was what I thought, but I didn't want to start a fight, so I kept it to myself. Gradually, Bob started nitpicking about the way I cook and clean, and before long, he started hurling insults like, "You should be grateful that a great guy like me even bothered to marry a plain and overweight woman like you." I thought a real gentleman wouldn't say such things to his wife, and would also help with housework. In fact, if he's got issues with the way I clean, I wish he'd at least clean his own room. The only thing he takes care of is his record collection. Also, I love reading comic books, and I've collected quite a few over the years, but one day, I found that all the comic books I had in my room had vanished. I asked Bob, suspecting the worst, and he said, "Oh, those? They were in the way, so I threw them out." I can't believe it. Those were important to me. Some of them were even out of print. Hard to get. I protested, but he just said, "Well, your comic books were starting to overflow from your room into the living room. Besides, you should outgrow this childish hobby of reading comic books." How dare he criticize my hobbies? Not to mention, throwing away my stuff without even asking me. Unforgivable. If he's going to be this awful and verbally abusive, why did he even marry me? Probably Bob just wanted a free housekeeper, I guess. And when he met me at a party and saw that I was quiet and submissive, he must have thought I was an easy target. Realizing this, I've spent many nights crying in bed. It's manageable now, but if we were to have kids, I shudder to think what the future might hold. One day, a friend told me she saw Bob walking arm in arm with a woman who wasn't me in the hotel district. Just yesterday, he said he was going out to meet a friend. I was under the impression that this friend was a man. What does it mean he was meeting a woman? Could he be cheating? With these suspicions, I hired a private investigator. As expected, it turned out that Bob was cheating on me. The other woman was a junior colleague from his office, a woman named Susan. He had been cheating on me since we got married. Whenever he said he was going out to meet friends or colleagues, it was mostly dates with Susan. How dare he dump all the housework on me and then play around? I'm going to divorce him, I thought, and even consulted a lawyer. But even so, I couldn't completely hate Bob, who allowed even a plain and boring woman like me to dream a little about marriage. So, I decided to make one last bet. This coming Saturday is my birthday. If Bob would celebrate the day with me, I thought I would hold off on the divorce. At dinner, I said to Bob, Bob, do you remember what's coming up this Saturday? Huh. Saturday? Is there something special going on? I was a little shocked to realize that he had completely forgotten. At this point, my hopes were dashed again. But I continued the conversation. It's my birthday. Oh yeah, now that you mention it. Well, it falls on a day off this year, so I was thinking of getting a cake and having it together. Ah, you promise, right? Absolutely do not make any other plans, okay? With a somewhat praying feeling, Sarah said this to Bob, who seemed reluctant. And then it was the Friday before her birthday. During dinner, Bob said, I have a business trip tomorrow. What? Tomorrow is my birthday, and we promised to eat cake together. I've already made a reservation. When I said that, he said, well, it's work. I can't help it. Show some understanding for your husband's work. Anyway, I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. It's for 2 days and 1 night. So I'll be back on Sunday evening. Please pack for me. Well, what about the cake I reserved? When I asked, just throw it away if you don't need it, he casually said, what is that? Despite it being my special birthday and going through the trouble of reserving a cake, he so nonchalantly said to throw it away. Is it really a business trip? Feeling suspicious, I checked his smartphone while Bob was in the shower. There, I found his exchanges with his mistress. Shall we go somewhere on a trip this Saturday for 2 days and 1 night? Sounds good. I want to go camping. How about it? Then I'll make a reservation at a lodge. Are you sure your wife hasn't found out? Are you okay? I'm okay. She's oblivious. Actually, this Saturday is Sarah's birthday. She said let's celebrate together, but it's a hassle. I don't want her to start demanding gifts and stuff, so I thought I'd go on a trip with you. Wow, that's terrible. Your wife must be so sad. I almost cried from the shock, but somehow managed to hold back and took a screenshot of their conversation on my smartphone. I didn't particularly want gifts or anything. If you had simply agreed to eat cake with me, I would have still had a glimmer of belief that you might care about me a bit. Seeing the messages between you and your mistress shattered that last bit of hope. Enough. I'm done with it. Then, on my birthday, Bob's so audaciously demanding at the front door. Well, I'm heading out. While I'm on a business trip, clean my room for me. Okay. By the way, I'm going to pick up the cake we reserved today. You still want me to throw away your share of the cake, right? You're nagging. I said it's fine. Understood. I'll clean your room, and I'll throw away anything that I think you don't need anymore. That's okay with you, right? Yeah, it's fine. I'm heading out now. With that, Bob left for what he claimed to be a business trip, but was in reality a trip with his mistress. Remember when I asked, is it okay if I throw away anything I think you don't need? And you said, yeah, it's fine. I recorded our conversation on a voice recorder, so there's no taking it back now. Well, once inside Bob's room, I vacuumed and wiped the windows. Next, I disposed of the unwanted items, old clothes, piles of stationery, and the record collection that Bob had been amassing. It took quite a bit of money and effort to collect those records, I recall. I packed up all these items and put them in the storeroom. Then, I placed the filled-out divorce papers on the living room table and left the house. Now, it's my birthday after all. I'm going to enjoy it just as I like. First, I want to pick up the reserved cake. After that, I booked a room in a luxury hotel I had always wanted to visit and ate the cake in my hotel room. Bob said, throw it away, but I couldn't bring myself to waste food, so I ate both portions. It was delicious, but I might gain weight again, so I really need to start dieting. I then went shopping in the nearby stores and took a stroll by the sea close by. I had spent my days off doing housework until now, so this kind of leisure day was a first in a long time. Just as I was thinking about this, I received a call from Bob on Sunday night. Honestly, I didn't want to answer, but I had no choice. Hello? Hey, where the heck are you? I got back from my business trip, and you're not home, and there's no dinner ready. How annoying. He's ruining the relaxing ambience of my luxury hotel stay. Well, I'm staying in a hotel for a bit, for reasons. There's a lovely scene nearby. Would you like me to send you a picture? What are you talking about? I don't care about that. Why are you in a hotel? Where's my dinner? Also, I found divorce papers. What's going on? What's going on? Well, if there are divorce papers, you should know what to do, right? Are you planning to make a paper airplane with it? You can't be that stupid. Just sign your name on it and take it to the city hall. So, you want a divorce? That's right. Honestly, I'm sick and tired of it. Bob just leaves me alone to play on his day off, and he never helps me with the household chores. From the very beginning, the first thing he does when he calls me is get mad because I haven't prepared dinner. I thought it was unbelievable. What's up with that? And when I looked in the room, my collection of records was gone. What happened? Oh, I threw away the records. As I say that, Bob's voice raises even higher. You threw them away? Are you kidding me? Why? You knew I cherished those. But Bob, you told me before your business trip that I could throw away anything I deemed unnecessary. You said it was okay. So I did. I even have our conversation recorded. Want to listen? And besides, you also threw away my beloved comics, didn't you? Anyway, don't just drop divorce papers on me and leave. I get it. Then let's meet and talk for once. And so, a few days later, honestly, I didn't want to see Bob anymore. But I had no choice but to have a discussion at the lawyer's office. Bob, whom I hadn't seen in several days, was in shabby clothes and had unkempt hair. I was the one who used to iron his clothes. I think the conditioner was about to run out. Maybe that's why his hair was so messy. But he should be able to buy conditioner by himself, I think. Seeing Bob in such a sloppy state, I wonder why I ever liked such a person. I'm glad. I had worried about how I would feel if I no longer wanted to divorce after seeing Bob again. But it seems that was needless worry. And then the discussion began. I'll say this first. I haven't changed my mind about wanting to divorce. This is the amount I want as alimony. Seeing the amount I suggested, Bob screamed, $30 million? Sarah, that's way too much. Just because I didn't help with the housework? Just because he didn't help with the housework? What is this man talking about? That's not all. You've also constantly insulted me, calling me fat and plain. And worst of all this, saying that, I pulled out evidence of infidelity that I had researched at the detective agency. I also show him the screenshot of our smartphone conversation at that time. You've been cheating since we got married. Even on my birthday. Lying about a business trip, to go on a vacation with your mistress? Considering all this, $30 million is still not enough. So, Sarah, did you know about the affair? Looking at the photos, Bob turns pale. Yes. Did you think I didn't notice because I'm dense? Don't make fun of me. And you threw away my beloved comics, remember? But that's because you threw away my records. Oh, the records? I lied about throwing them away. Surprise, Bob, I explained. Actually, I thought about throwing them away, but I felt it would be too cruel, and I didn't want to be held responsible for throwing them away, so I didn't. The records are stored in the back of the storeroom. What? Seeing Bob's relieved face, I say, why are you looking so relieved? The fact that you threw away my comics hasn't changed, so you should compensate for that. And about the cake, you said throw it away, but I couldn't disrespect food, so I ate both portions. So, you didn't throw away anything? When Bob sought confirmation, I told him with a chuckle, there's no need for that. I declare to you, I discard anything I don't need, and I've done just that. Well, actually, I'm about to do it. Huh. Bob seemed unable to comprehend. With a deeper smile, I told him, yes, you're the thing I need the least. I'm going to get rid of you completely. Once you understand that, please divorce. There's no way the alimony will be less than this amount. If you argue, it'll be higher. When I said this, Bob pleaded, I'm sorry. I won't cheat anymore. And I'll help with the housework because you're here. Because I'm here? What? So you can go on dates with your mistress without any worry, dumping the chores on me during your days off? No, that's not it. Bob babbled, no matter what you say, I intend to divorce. I don't like holding on to trash because I'm a neat freak. I retorted. After I said that, Bob fell apart, stammering, I'm trash? His expression at that moment was priceless. Afterwards, we divorced. Since the divorce, all communication has been through our lawyer, so I haven't seen Bob since. However, according to stories my lawyer shared, Bob, having left all the housework to me, had no domestic skills. He briefly cohabited with Susan, but apparently she too couldn't do housework. Their place quickly became a mess. Their diet was all over the place because they were constantly eating out. Bob started gaining weight, and his once handsome face now looks quite regrettable. It seems Susan broke up with Bob and moved on to another job. Furthermore, it became gossip at work that Bob and Susan were having an affair, causing him discomfort. But he can't quit because the alimony I requested is substantial. I've switched jobs and moved, and now I'm enjoying living alone. I'm not run ragged by housework like before. No one gives me a hard time, and I'm happy. Plus, maybe because I'm not stressed anymore,